Welcome to Satsunami.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Satsunami. My name is Adam, and joining me today, is he a traveller with a legitimate visa? Is he a revolutionary trying to foment trouble? Is he the foreign girlfriend of a high-ranking government official with falsified papers? Or is he a terrifying monster from the depths of the sea? Let's check his documents and find out. Satsunami, welcome back. Glory to Arstotzka, and your papers, please.
I told you that in confidence. Hi everybody. Nice to be back. And indeed, yep, glory to Arstotzka, of course. Yes, you're going to let me in now, Adam.
Only if you can say glory to Arstotzka 5 times fast.
Oh, you Okay, do you really want to go there? Right.
Go for it. I believe in you.
Okay, glory to Arstotzka, glory to Arstotzka, glory to Arstotzka, glory to Arstotzka, and glory to Arstotzka.
Oh no, you denied. Guards.
No! I'll be back!
How are you doing this fine day anyway?
Not too bad, to be honest. Really hyped that we are, I think at this point, about 5 episodes away from the big 100, the big episode 100, so really excited for that one.
My god, I feel like I say this like every week, but where does the time go?
I don't know. I think it goes into the back of like the wardrobe, and it's like, you know, when you go in to clean it out once every like couple of years, and you're like, oh my god, this is here.
Oh, my Stairmaster. And the first 90 episodes of Satsunami.
You're going to be telling that to your grandkids in the future.
God, I pity them.
It's like, Grandpapa Sandwich, one of these. Gather round, children. Yes, how you told a red panda he wasn't allowed into Arstotzka.
Maybe by that point they'll have like taken the podcast office. It'll be a coup.
Or we'll be the propaganda wing of Arstotzka.
That's true. Who knows what the future holds? Who knows? I wonder if we'll get a letter from the Queen when we reach 100. Our podcast is 100 episodes old.
I think the Queen's probably busy doing other things.
Better be writing a letter to us for that level she's busy with.
I can't argue with those facts.
So some of you fine listeners have probably been able to discern from these sometimes insane ramblings in the beginning that in this episode, we're going to be conducting a retrospective of Papers, Please and Return of the Obra Dinn. Now, both these games were created and developed by the solo indie developer, Lucas Pope. So Pope developed a kind of early interest in programming and game design from a young age, and after working at some of the bigger game studios, most notably Naughty Dog, where he worked on Uncharted 1 and 2, he decided to strike out on his own as an indie developer. So after releasing several small experimental indie games, Pope vowed to his pregnant wife that he would develop one more solo game before going off to find a real job. This final project turned into Papers, Please. Released in 2013, this game was a critical and commercial success, selling more than 1.8 million copies in its first 3 years, and winning several awards, including the Seamus McNally Grand Prize at the Independent Games Festival. This success allowed Pope to immediately break his promise to his wife and to continue his work as a solo developer, and he released his next game, Return of the Obra Dinn, in 2018. This too received high praise, winning awards at the Game Awards and the British Academy Game Awards, and again the Seamus McNally Grand Prize. So Satsu, when did you first become aware of either Lucas Pope or Papers, Please or Return of the Obra Dinn?
In all honesty, I think I got onto the Papers, Please train quite late. I remember hearing about it, and I actually think our good friend Green Shield 95 was telling me about it, because I remember I saw it on his wish list at one point, and I was asking him, I was like, well, what is this game? And he said, oh, it's Papers, Please, and he kind of explained the brief premise, and I'd kind of heard of this game through the grapevine, but again, as you know, it's one of these games that I heard like a lot of high praise for it, but in all honesty, I never dived into it. I think it's one of those games as well that I bought it and put it on the backlog, left it beside To the Moon and What Remains of Edith Finch, and went, yep, I'll play them one day. And yeah, one day resulted in several years later. So to be honest, I had heard of the name like Lucas Pope floating around, but I wasn't really that knowledgeable until, I started researching this topic. And can I just say, I was so shocked that for someone who is credited as an indie developer, aware he worked for such prestigious companies such as Naughty Dog. Like, I couldn't believe when they said, oh, I worked for other companies. I thought, okay, what's it going to be? Is it going to be another, indie company? It's like, oh no, I worked on the Uncharted games with Naughty Dog. And I was like, oh my God, I genuinely did not know that. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock. But even for the return of the Obra Dinn, I had no idea about this game until you brought it up. And thankfully, I say thankfully, but we'll get on to that. But when you kindly gifted me the games and you said, or rather you gifted me the return of Obra Dinn and you said, oh, you should play Papers, Please. And I went away, I did, and yeah, life-changing. That's really all I can say. But what about you, Adam? Were you more knowledgeable about Lucas Pope and kind of this sphere of indie games?
I would love to say yes, but honestly, no. When Papers, Please first released, I had no idea of its existence. I wasn't particularly into indie games in that kind of like early 2010s. I was still very much a kind of AAA kind of mainstream gamer. It wasn't until, and I have to credit Yatsu Croshaw of Zero Punctuation fame, if you know that YouTube series. I have to credit him for bringing Lucas Pope and both these games to my attention. So I think either in 2017 or 2018, I'm sure I watched his review of Papers, Please, and that it instantly caught my attention just from the way he described it. And I was like, wow, I've never heard of a game like this. It sounds so unique. And then I saw his review, I think, of Obra Dinn not long after that, and I was like, wow, I was really keen to play Obra Dinn. But Obra Dinn only first released on PC, so I waited till it came out on console the year after. So I played Papers, Please first. As you'll learn in this episode, really enjoyed it. I think it's great. And then played Obra Dinn, absolutely loved that as well. So again, like you, I kind of was. You actually probably knew of Lucas Pope before I did. I was far too mainstream and quote unquote cool to know about a solo indie developer at that point.
Oh no, I totally see what you mean, because all of these indie games that I kind of now say, oh, it's the best game ever, it's fantastic, they came out years ago, and I was exactly in the same boat as you, where I was like, it's an indie game, I don't know whether I'll enjoy it or not. And I mean, I really wish I had played it, but see, on the flip side, and this is going to make me sound old, really, I'm not that old, but it almost does feel, though, like these games are ones that you would appreciate when you were older, as opposed to playing them if you were like a high school or college or, university student. I don't think it would have the same impact necessarily. Like, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I totally agree. From my perspective, certainly, I don't think I would have stuck with something. I mean, I feel like I may have stuck with Return of the Obra Dinn because I feel like it's kind of uniquely, let's say uniquely, but it's of intense interest to me. But certainly, I don't think something like Papers, Please, I could have seen myself dropping that pretty quickly, when I was younger. So I agree. I think I came to it of a good age as well. So, I mean, I guess not everybody's different. So, like, maybe if you're more interested in gaming and stuff of a younger age, that might still appeal. But I do think you're right generally, and that I think as you're slightly older, it's probably a game. Certainly, I think Papers, Please is probably a game that you would appreciate more.
I mean, these games do delve into very deep topics. Like, for example, with Papers, Please, it is like a story about a document inspector, essentially. You're regulating who comes into the Republic of Arstotzka. I hope it's a republic, and I've not just outed myself as not being a fan of this game.
I think it's a quote-unquote republic.
Yeah, quote-unquote republic.
A People's Democratic Republic.
Sorry, 1 second. My red panda lawyer is right. Okay. No, he's telling me to say glory to Arstotzka. So this episode gets released in Arstotzka. So that's okay.
Emphasis on the red there.
Yeah. But yeah, this delves into some very serious topics. You have to decide. In fact, you know what? Before I even go on, do you think it's time to jump into it?
I think it's time to go. Time to get into our main discussion. So before we begin the episode proper, I'm being told here that my superior at Border Control wants to have a quick word with me. So let's take a quick ad break and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Satsunami, a variety podcast that talks about topics from gaming and films to streaming and general interests.
Previously on Satsunami, we discussed Game of the Decade, Deadly Premonition, the romantic thriller Birdemic, and listen to us get all sappy as we discuss our top 5 Christmas films.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube, and all good podcast apps. As always, stay safe,
stay awesome, and most importantly,
stay hydrated.
We are Beer and Chill Podcast.
Podcast where we review TV shows, games, movies, and whatever else takes our fancy.
So what are you waiting for? If you're a cool kid like us, you're gonna listen to the Beer and Chill podcast. You can get it anywhere from Spotify all the way to your grandmother's radio. My name is Jan.
And I'm Craigie C.
And we are
Beer and Chill.
Well, that was quite the tongue lashing. So before I'm sent off to the gulag, let's talk about Papers, Please. So, right, fear not, Satsu, I'm not going to put you on the spot here and make you summarise this game, because, luckily for us, Lucas Pope has already done that. In his own words, in Papers, Please, you play a border inspector at a contentious checkpoint. People are coming into your booth, and they want to get from one side to the other. You've got to check their documents and make sure everything's in order before you let them through. So, sounds pretty boring, right? Well, trust me, this game is anything but that. In this game, you take on the role of a border control officer in the fictional totalitarian Eastern Bloc-esque nation of Arstotzka, which has a tense and vacillating relationship with its neighbouring states. You must review the paperwork of each immigrant arriving into Arstotzka against an ever-growing stringent list of rules to see if each person is allowed to legally enter the country. You need to do well at your job to receive enough income to provide for your family, while you also have the opportunity to accept bribes and work with corrupt officials to earn more money or to join a counter-revolutionary faction working against the state. So Pope came up with the idea for this game while having to undertake a large amount of international travel when working on a previous gaming project. He became fascinated with the work of border inspectors and sought to try and translate this into a game. So what were your initial thoughts and then your kind of first impressions of playing Papers, Please, Satsu?
Stressful. Next question.
I feel that's the answer to a lot of questions you can ask about Papers,
Yeah.
Please.
Well, how to put this in the nicest way possible? For a game that is so, I don't want to say simplistic, because that's not fair on Lucas Pope as well, but for a game that has like so many kind of relatively simplistic gameplay elements and things like that, I was just shocked at how emotional I was getting when I was playing through this. Because initially, you know, it says, oh, you check the document. If the document doesn't match this, then do that. And usually in games like this, they focus more on that element, if it makes sense. Like, oh, if you process something correctly, then that's it. Throw it away. You get more points. Yay! Glory to Arstotzka. But in this game, it's like your family and the lives of other families totally depend on your decisions. And I think that kind of narrative hook is the thing that I think everybody kind of appreciates in this game. I struggle to call it a game, I have to say. I really struggle, because on the one hand, obviously, it's got gameplay elements, it's got a system where you earn points and things, and by that I mean you earn Arstotzka credits. I can't even remember what their currency is, but at the same time, it's like the decisions you're making, it isn't even like you're having fun in a way. Like, you're having fun because you kind of go in autopilot and you think, right, okay, I'm checking this, I'm checking that. Okay, you've got the right documents, glory to Arstotzka. You know, you press this and then you're reading through the paper and things. But on the flip side, it can get really stressful. There's one particular moment, and this is something I messaged you about, I think, when it happened to me for the first time. But it was when this man comes through the checkpoint and then he turns around and he says something like, although he's got the right documents, he says, oh, my wife's coming next. She's not got the right documentation. He kind of asks you, can you let her through? So you have to make like a decision. You have to say, oh, I'm going to let this woman in because that's a husband and the stories check out and everything, but her documents are totally wrong. So you either have to obey the word of the law. Have you ever seen Les Mis, Adam?
I have indeed.
This is going to sound like a weird comparison, but do you know the character of Inspector Javert?
Yeah, Russell Crowe's finest acting performance.
We don't talk about that portrayal, Adam.
Wise, very wise. I don't think even he talks about it.
I actually don't think he does, but anyway, sorry, that was an episode for another day. In, you know, Les Mis, Inspector Javert, as the name suggests, he is a member of the French police force who looks at the law very kind of black and white, even though he's chasing a character who just stole a loaf of bread to save his sister's family. This character says, oh no, I don't care, you broke the law. And I know that's kind of a side tangent, but that's the kind of mindset you have to decide between. Do you take a totally objective black and white outlook into this game? Do you say, oh, well, maybe I'll let one or two through, which the game will give you a warning and then start to punish you for getting things wrong, and that piles on the stress? Or do you play it as like an objective video gamer where you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, I want those sweet, sweet XP points? Yeah, sorry, I know that's kind of a ramble, but genuinely, that's how I felt. I felt really stressed at times, and at one point, I don't know if you felt the same, but I actually went on autopilot at one point where I was getting quite tired when I was playing it, but I was just processing, and I got quite numb at one point, you know, like emotionally. I was just like, okay, here we go. But did you ever get to that point?
I'll talk about the exact moment later, but going on autopilot was exactly what caused caused me the most amount of trouble in this game and brought me to ruin just by going straight onto autopilot. It was funny you just saying like stressful as the very first word for like your impressions of this game. I guarantee if we like polled a lot of players, that would probably be one of the most frequent words used to describe the experience of playing Papers, Please. When I went into it, I kind of knew what the gameplay loop was, but again, kind of like you, I really did not expect to be as engaged and to be so, my stress levels to be so heightened and everything. And it was funny you mentioned a mutual friend, Green Shield, because I believe, am I right in saying he stopped playing this game because he found it too stressful?
I think you're right, yeah, and I can see why.
Yeah, it's a valid, like, I do think it's a great game, but I can totally understand that kind of outcome, because there's a lot of stress to be had here, particularly if you get absorbed into it. So if we'll kind of look a little bit more in depth at the kind of game mechanics. So the central gameplay loop is you reviewing kind of documents and transcripts, taking fingerprints, conducting body scans, all to decide whether like a particular individual can legally enter the country of Arstotzka. You're awarded money for each person that you correctly process. Money is deducted from you, you say, after your third processing failure, and then the money that you accumulate at the end is used to pay for food, heat, and medicine for your family. And importantly, family members can die, as I'm sure people will find out in this game. So how accessible did you find this game? Did you find it quite easy to pick up the gameplay? Was it a challenge at all?
Objectively, I did think it was easy once you got into the flow of it, and this is going to sound very weird, but I felt as if this game was more like a job, if that makes sense. Like, have you ever been in a new job before and you have to kind of learn the ins and outs of what you're supposed to do? So it's like the first couple of times you do something, you make mistakes, and you're like, oh damn, I've done this, and they're like, don't worry, you can try again and everything. I just want to put out a disclaimer. I've never worked for Arstotzka ticket booth or anything like that. Nothing that stressful. But do you know what I mean though, Adam? It's like that kind of having to learn and pick up the skills. But see, once you pick it up and you know what to look for, you just go on autopilot and you just kind of think, right, okay, I'm checking out the name, checking out the gender, checking out the photos and things, which the photos, I must admit, did get a gig about me when you looked at the photo and then you looked at them and you went, nah. Just like, nah. But yeah, I honestly felt as if it was, at times, it was like starting a new job, but not in a bad way. I just want to say that because you might think, oh, you're starting a new job, it must be very laborious, it must be very boring and everything. But no, genuinely, it was, again, I don't want to say it was fun, but there was a kind of hook there that made it addictive to kind of go through. So yeah, no, honestly, I thought the gameplay itself was pretty good, I would say. No, let me rewind a bit. The only thing I would criticise this game for is there were some moments where it felt like there was too much going on. And I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just because I was getting stressed out at turning away like a hungry family. But it did feel as if there was a lot to contend with. So at the very beginning of the game, you just have to check whether or not they've got a passport. And if they've got an Arstotzkan passport, that's perfectly fine. But everybody else needs like a travel permit, I think. In fact, no, sorry. I think it's like the first day you're not allowed to admit anyone who's not Arstotzkan, or if they aren't, then they have to have like a special permit on the other days. But then they start introducing other elements like having to do body scans to determine someone's gender. So like, for example, you'll get a very feminine looking person coming in and then it says on their passport like, oh, they're a man and everything, and you have to do like a full body scan to to confirm and everything. It's a very invasive game though, and I know that ties into the whole dystopian thing, but it's like grilling people there and then trying to get into Arstotzka to be like, who are you? If you know what I mean, like challenging them. And it's an interesting experience. But sorry, I hope that answered the question there.
No, like, I would completely agree with what you're saying. From a purely, like, mechanical standpoint, this game is just played with, like, the mouse. I think you can upgrade your border control booth to kind of make things a bit easier. I think that's when some buttons on the keyboard start getting used, but for the most part, you can just play this with your mouse. So from that perspective, it's like a really simple game to grapple with. But you're completely right in that there's a lot of different elements that get introduced into it, especially when you start taking fingerprints, body scans, when you start having to look for discrepancies. And I think for me, the moment the stress really started to hit was, I think, when work permits were added. So people who are coming into the country to work need to then have 3 sets of documents that you then need to, like, review, make sure they're all, like, you know, legal, they're all valid, and then also make sure the information matches amongst them. And from that point, it just kind of escalates because you're eventually looking at, like, diplomatic, like, papers. I think there's also, like, health. If I remember right, later in the game, there's, like, kind of health certificates and everything that started getting introduced, and you're getting more and more kind of stringent criteria. You know, you need to be checking for contraband. I don't know if you got this far in the game as well, but eventually you get access to, like, sniper rifles and tranquilizer guns that you need to, like, use if people try to, like, illegally run for the border and everything. And you need to, like, find the key and smash open the case to get it out. So a lot of different elements get put in to really kind of ramp up the tension. But so yeah, it's both a very simple, I suppose, maybe like the way it's maybe like, I don't think it's exactly this, but like kind of, you know, simple to understand, difficult to master is maybe the kind of way I would describe it. Just as a kind of final point, like, have you ever played a game like this before? I mean, because I'd never played a game, unless I'm completely blanking on one, but I've never played a game with this kind of gameplay loop of, like, reviewing documents and things. But have you ever played anything like it?
I honestly can't think of any off the top of my head either. It is definitely a unique game, because can you imagine many games like this getting popular? Technically, you get flight simulators, you get, you know, truck simulators, even Goat Simulator, but, you know, those are all things that have some kind of thing that you would think, okay, not my cup of tea, but I can understand why people would be interested in it. But for this game, it's like you're literally a ticket inspector or passport inspector. You know, you're inspecting documents to decide the fate of all these people coming into the country and everything. It's quite surreal to think that Lucas Pope has created this, like, small world. Do you know what really surprised me? Actually, with just the whole idea of Papers, Please, it was just the fact that there were so many fans of this game. You know, as I said, it's like, it's such a, what should be on paper, ironically enough, a boring concept, but it really isn't. It really hooks you in with the story, with the characters, and again, as you said, with the more kind of complicated elements later on.
And I think that's an excellent point to turn to the kind of story of this game. So this game has 20 different endings, dependent on a lot of different actions that you take throughout the game. So in one, you can escape Arstotzka with your family. In some endings, you can stay in Arstotzka, remain a loyal employee of the state. You can also help the resistance movement, who will contact you at different points and ask you to do certain tasks. Or you can end up in a labor camp, which I think is probably the most common ending that you can do. You can end up for very different reasons. So I'm really interested to hear this. So talk me through kind of how your story unfolded in the game. What actions did you take, and what was the end of your story?
We're really gonna go there.
We are. This is the grilling of the.
I swear, I gave you my passport. What more do you want, Adam?
Only you've been able to say "Glory to Arstotzka" 5 times fast.
Glory to Arstotzka. There. That's the third time. It's like that guy that you meet. Is it? I could be butchering this name, so apologies, but it's like that Georgi Kostava, I think his name is. You're the guy who, like, gives you the documents that he's clearly drawn.
He gives his handwritten passport.
Oh, I love that character. Oh, such a highlight. So, in my playthrough, when you're playing this game, there's kind of cutaways, like, after every day, and at the end of each day, you get, like, money depending on how your performance went, and you can put it towards looking after your family. So it is quite a huge family. You know, you've got the mother, the children, you've got, like, uncles, aunts, mother-in-laws, things like that, and you have to to decide whether or not they live. I can't remember how far. I think I got maybe halfway through. I could be wrong, but yeah, long story short, my family died out and they fired me because apparently passport inspector in the glorious Republic of Arstotzka is a family profession, as they told me. It reminds me of, do you remember in The Simpsons do you remember the episode where Milhouse's parents break up?
I sleep in a race car. Where do you sleep?
Yeah, exactly. I sleep in the gulag. Oh. No, but that was it. You know the scene where Kirk goes to like his job and he's like, well, I've still got my job at the cracker factory, and they fire him because he's a divorced parent. And his boss turns around and says, you know, crackers are a family business. Maybe single people lead them? I don't know. I don't want to know. It's like that. You know, maybe single people do check documents and passports. You know what? I don't want to know. Yeah, and it's like saying, after all these years of loyalty, it's goodbye and good luck. I don't recall saying good luck. But I did say glory to Arstotzka. So long story short, my family ended up dying in it. There were times where, I have to admit, I realised that every day you could get away with like one mistake. So I always used that mistake to help certain people. So as I said before, the guy who goes through and he says, oh, my wife's coming right behind me, so please, let her through. I let her through knowing that I wouldn't be docked any pay. There was another incident which I have to admit I felt really proud of, where there was a guy, or rather there was a woman who comes through, and this is where the deep themes come in, where she says that she's potentially going to be trafficked, and she gives you the name of the guy. And I have to admit, the first time the guy popped up, I audibly gasped. I was like, you son of a bitch. And the guy, of course, is like, do I know you? Do you remember the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the one.
Oh, it's so grim. But it was satisfying to put him behind bars, and then the next day the papers talked about it, saying this notorious trafficker was arrested in Arstotzka and everything. I was like, wow, I actually made a difference. And I get it, it's a video game, it's not real, but you do get that sense of accomplishment of, oh, I actually helped someone today. And that's what I always used the kind of leniency in the system for, to kind of help as many people as I could. But at the same time, as you said, the pressure does come on where you have to feed your family and you get offered bribes and things by the guards. Technically, they want you to arrest more people so they get more money, and then they give you a cut of the money. Basically, long story short from that, yeah, family dead, single people don't check passports apparently.
Ending up in the labour camp, or I think with your family dead, is a very common it's a very common experience for most people who play this. I did reach the end with most of my family alive, and I'll speak a bit about my reactions to one of the deaths, which shocked me at my reaction to it. But so I kind of went into this game and I was like, right, I'm gonna be a true family man. It's like my family is my priority. So whatever else, I'm gonna try and do as well as I can at my job to make enough money just so I can provide food and heat for my family, medicine if they need it. And let me tell, I don't know if you reached the bit where your son has a birthday, but oh my god, scraping. I think I left the family without heat for several days so I could afford the birthday present for my son. And then when he wrote me a thank you card and I put it up in my booth, and then the inspector, my boss, walks in and fined me for having an illegal drawing up. It was quite the gut punch. But basically, my story ended when my boss showed up one morning. So I got very near the end of the game. The game has 31 days. It's like a full month's work. I think I got to day 26. My boss walked in the morning and said, oh, my girlfriend's coming in from a different country. Make sure to let her through. And I was like, yep, will do. Of course I will. Instantly forgot that happened as I got into checking people's diplomatic authorization, their work permits and everything. This character came up. I did not recognize the name at all. There was something wrong with the documents. I sent her back. I said, nope, you're not getting in. You're not getting in today. And then it reached the end. My boss walked in and said, I've had enough of you. And I got thrown into a labor camp. for being too good at my job. So there you go. That was maybe my punishment for trying to be too good at my job. So yeah, I ended up basically the same place as you. My family had to deal with the shame of me being in a labour camp. So maybe if they were dead, it would have been better. But anywho, that's a life in Arstotzka for you.
I'm actually just surprised you didn't give him a passport or something, for his birthday.
Do you know what? That's actually one ending, is that if you, because I think to get out of the country, you need to get like foreign passports. So I think you have to like illegally detain people and take their passports, and then you'll eventually use those to get your family out
Oh God.
the country. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting endings to it. As you say, you can be the kind of, you can do that. Is that the stuff you can do to help the resistance as well? I think they say they can help your family. There's also a fun one where I think if you take too many bribes and you have too much money, your neighbors will report on you and you'll get sent to the labor camp for corruption. So there's a whole kind of spectrum. I mean, many of them end up in the same kind of place, but there's a spectrum of different things, which is quite interesting and makes you kind of live with those consequences. So I mean, you've kind of talked about some of the like the memorable moments that kind of stuck out for you. Is there any others that you kind of wanted to mention? Any other kind of moments that really stuck out for you during your playthrough?
Actually, one moment I have to admit that I was really proud of was, is it like an athlete that's trying to escape to Arstotzka?
Yeah. Foreign athlete is, yeah, you see a headline, don't you?
I was so proud of that when I recognised them, because I read the article and I thought, oh, that's cool, you know, a wee bit of cheeky world building from Lucas Pope here. And then 2 seconds later, this guy comes in, and I can't remember his name, but he comes in and I recognise the name. I thought, why does that name look familiar? And then I'm imagining, you know, my inspector just like pulling out his newspaper and going, okay, yeah, glory to Arstotzka. Oh my God, you're a murderer. So it's just like, bam, shutters down, got him arrested. I don't think I got a bonus for that though, unfortunately, but no, that was definitely the main highlight. The only other highlight I would say again was Georgie Gustava, who was absolutely fantastic. Every time he popped up during the days, it just made my day in the game. I was just like, oh, get out here, you lovable scamp. Yeah, was there any moments that particularly stood out to you?
Well, I'm not going to pick highlights. I'm going to pick lowlights, just for what I feel like they revealed about me and the revulsion I felt in myself. So there's one point in the game, and I don't know actually if these moments happen all the time or if they're like slightly randomized. But there was a moment in the game as I ended one day that the game told me, it's like, oh, I think it's like your brother's like, oh, your brother and his wife have died. Will you adopt your niece, your like young niece? And I looked at it and I was struggling to I was like, I could barely afford like food and heat for everybody, you know, and medicine. So I made quite a callous decision. I was like, no, I can't afford to do it. And I made it quite quickly and quite callously. And then I remember hitting no, and then it carrying on. And just this like single line of text came up, and it was like, your niece disappears into a state orphanage. The decision just hit me there, and I was like, wow, what did I just do? And I felt like an utterly crappy human being for the rest of my playthrough after I'd stopped playing as well. And then the other one was when my uncle eventually died, because again, I was prioritizing giving food to my wife and my son. So I think unfortunately I left it too long for him. He got sick. I couldn't afford medicine for him, and he died. And then to my eternal shame, one of the first like emotions I felt was relief. In a way, I was like, oh, that's going to make things a bit easier now. And then I was like, wow, I'm a terrible human being. It kind of I don't know if anybody's seen the Seinfeld episode where George's fiance dies, and then like the doctor's like the first reaction he had almost looked like relief and joy, and I was like, wow, I'm as bad as George Costanza. So those were the moments that really stood out for me, just in there of what I felt they revealed about me.
I was going to say, it could have been worse. You could have processed Penske and let him into Arstotzka.
But the company's in financial ruin.
Actually, there is one more point I want to raise, but see the first time you see, and again, kind of spoilers here, but see when you see the terrorist attack for the first time?
Yeah.
That actually blew me away. Like, I genuinely didn't realise that was going to happen, because, you know, it's like a kind of normal day, you're processing people, you're like, oh, another boring day. And then all of a sudden, all you hear is the guy declaring glory to his own country before you see this pixel blow up in the corner of the screen, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? And it turns out it's a terrorist attack from one of the neighbouring countries that they were at war with, and you think, oh my God. As you slowly put down your shutters and put up the close for the day sign, you're just like, yeah, not dealing with this today. It was just like quite an impactful scene, I have to say.
I like as well, because that's a good example of like what I love about this game as well, is how like the world kind of fleshes itself out through these sort of brief interactions that you get with visitors. And that's a great example, that one, because the very next day you have to conduct a body scan on every person who's coming from that particular country where the terrorist is believed to have come from. And then the day after that, you then read in the newspaper that country has complained about it. So they're like saying, oh yeah, diplomats arriving today, so you're not allowed to do it anymore, and make sure the diplomat gets through. But just like the small details that came through of the world. Like I remember one character arriving from a neighboring country, and my character asked her, like, what are you like, what's your purpose here? And she's like, oh, I'm just traveling through, I hate this country. Like, I'm here for hopefully only 2 days. days. I hate it. And just funny little details like that. And then I think as well, just you get a sense of like how this Arstotzkan regime looks. Like it's kind of its political views as well in a way, particularly around transgender issues. As you mentioned before, you'll get people who arrive there who have like male or female on their passport, but they perhaps don't look classically like you would think a male or female, and you're forced to interrogate them on this, and you might end up having to turn them away, or you're going to have to conduct a body scan and that complete like invasion of privacy. And so it's kind of interesting that it's not a detail that's like, it's not a headline talking about it all in the paper. It's just one of these details, and you can just see that this regime clearly just has no respect, no interest in those types of issues. So that's one thing I really love about the game, is just the way it kind of builds this world.
Oh no, I totally agree. I think one of the testaments to this game though, and like how well it's built up its popularity and its fan base, is just the fact that so many people, whether it's cosplayers, content creators, even artists, they've all like drawn and created art related to this game, and it's absolutely mind-blowing to see how much dedication there is. So for example, there is, and I've been badgering you for ages to watch it, so apologies Adam, but there is a 10-minute video on YouTube for Papers, Please, and it is quite famous, I think, within the community and things. But if you haven't seen it and you think, oh, I don't know whether I want to get into Papers, Please, I mean, there's slight spoilers about what happens in the game, but I would wholeheartedly recommend that you go and watch that to see what kind of game Papers, Please is. So the movie itself was directed by someone called Nikita Ordinsky. Honestly, they did a fantastic job with this film. The main actor who plays the inspector is called Igor Savochkin, and unfortunately, from what I was reading in the comments, he actually passed away after the film. I don't know if he passed away like in the last year or so, as of recording this episode, but he does just such a fantastic job with the way he has like all those kind of subtle facial movements, and he's trapped in this like dark and dingy office and everything, and he like has to process people. He has to make that decision. He's got like a photo of his family on his desk, and he kind of looks at them and then has to look at the person in front of him, and there's that dilemma, does he prioritize the person in front of him who has this life, who has this individuality, this freedom, or does he do it for his family? Does he make sure that his family's got, as you said, enough to eat, enough to sustain themselves for that cold winter? It's honestly one of those games that on the surface you would not expect this level of dedication, and yet somehow people have created amazing things from this game. And even Lucas Pope, I actually think he gave his blessing for this film. There's actually a making of video for this film, and they actually said that they contacted Lucas Pope and they didn't expect to hear back from him, and I think it was like 2 weeks later after they sent the email, he replied and everything and said like he was totally on board with it. So you can see he kind of cares about the community as well, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong Adam, but did he not have like a competition or something where he asked people to like submit names to include in the game?
You're exactly right, he did that. He was actually very open with the development of this, because he kept a public blog while making the game, and he was very kind of interactive with a lot of gamers and I think some content creators and things while he was making the game. And he released a couple of demos, a couple of betas of it with some of the content in it, which I think really helped to build excitement for the game, and then helped it as well when it was released, get its kind of name out there. So yeah, like it doesn't surprise me that he would give his blessing, because he seemed very active with the kind of community, and as you mentioned, there was a big response to it as well from cosplay and everything like that.
Because I was just surprised at the amount of people that actually put their name. I think it was like something like 30,000 or something. I can't remember if that was like the total number or the number of people he had to cut down from, because he said things like joke names won't be included, and he has to use Eastern Bloc sounding names as opposed to Jim Smith. Can you imagine that? Everyone coming through, it's like, hello there, I'm Jim Smith from United Federation. Nice to meet you. Sorry, I just realised United Federation sounds a little bit like the one out of Sonic.
Oh my god.
See, the rabbit hole goes deeper than we expected.
Maybe we get to day 31, Shadow will show up, or Gerald Robotnik.
Wait, did you not watch the credits?
Oh god, no, I skipped too early.
Yeah, the post-credit scene, that's where he pops up. Anyway, terrible jokes aside, yeah, it is honestly just like such a fantastic game, a fantastic experience, and quite frankly, I'm blown away at how fantastic this developer is. Like how much love and attention they gave this game for something that seems on paper so simplistic and so, straightforward.
I completely concur with what you're saying there. I think if you remember, I brought this game up a few episodes back when ourselves and Craigie C were discussing kind of mature content in games, and I brought this one up as I thought like one of the best examples of tackling like mature, subject matter in a game. And I think that is still for me like the greatest strength of this game is the fact that basically like you have to end up defining your own kind of moral code here, and we've talked about that and like what you're going to prioritize and what you want to achieve here, and the game will make you live with the consequences of your actions, and in many ways there's like there's nothing that you're really going to do that doesn't have like at least some kind of consequence, whether it's impacts the game or whether it's just something you're like, wow, just makes you think about it. And video games are very a unique medium and have a unique ability to tell stories because of their interactive element, something that movies and books and TV shows don't have. And just for me, like, I don't think this could ever work as like, I mean, we talked about the short length movie sounds amazing, I really do need to watch it, but I don't think if this, let's say Lucas Pope was like a film director or something, I just don't think this would have had the same impact with it being a film or anything. I think the very interactivity of it is what makes it so impactful, and I think it really shows what video games can do, and like how powerful a medium they can be. And in the day, like, I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite games of all time, but I do think it's probably, I would rate it as one of the best, because I just think it's such an incredible like achievement, especially for just one person to have done. So before we move on, do you have any kind of closing thoughts you want to say about Papers, Please?
I would say if you haven't played this game, usually it's quite cheap on Steam. Usually they have sales going on during the summer or the kind of mid-season ones. I would say check it out, or at the very least watch a Let's Play of it, because it's an experience that, and I do think that it's a better experience if you actually play it, but it is one of those games that, again, it seems simplistic, it seems kind of, I don't know, is it a good game, is it not? Really, go play it, throw yourself into it. You will be absolutely consumed by this world that Lucas Pope has made. And it's a very small world, ironically enough, although they talk about these worlds like the United Federation and other countries nearby. Of course, you're processing documents from all these other countries, but at the end of the day, you're just like one individual who is trapped in Arstotzka having to process these and seeing the world through this tiny booth. And I can't understate how impactful this game is. And I know maybe I'm a bit biased because I am getting into indie games a lot more recently. So if you haven't played it, definitely go check it out. You won't regret it, but I wouldn't say you'll probably enjoy it, but not for the reasons, normally like, oh, it's a bad game or something. I mean, because it's emotionally taxing, you're gonna have to go through some difficult decisions, and yeah, go check it out, essentially.
Could not agree more with that. Well then, since your papers seem to be all in order, Mr. Satsu, and you've also given me that bribe of credits, let's proceed to Pope's follow-up game, Return of the Obra Dinn. So, Return of the Obra Dinn is set in 1807, and you play as an insurance inspector for the East India Company. So the Obra Dinn, a merchant ship that went missing 5 years previously, reappears near the English shore, with no living soul on it. You're dispatched to the ship to uncover the fate of the crew, and to reconstruct what occurred on the vessel. So initially Pope only planned to spend about 6 months making Obra Dinn, however it kind of expanded exponentially. It turned into a 4-year project that allegedly made him contemplate retirement upon its completion, because it took quite the toll. So again, going back to you, Satsu, reconstruct for me your initial thoughts going into this game, and then kind of what your first impressions were once you got to grips with it.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I had never heard of Obra Dinn until you brought it up, because you talked about playing Papers, Please and everything, and when we were coming up with ideas for this episode, you had said, oh, why don't you try Obra Dinn? And I was like, Obra what now? And yeah, I was like, okay, I'll try it. Graciously, you gifted me the game and I decided to go through it. I'm not going to lie, I did not have a good experience. Only at the very, very beginning, when I loaded up the title screen and my computer was like not cooperating. So that kind of initially, I was like, oh god, it's going to be one of these games. But I feel as if that's more like an optimization issue with Steam, maybe. I don't know. But it was just a pain. I couldn't move my mouse games on my desktop, it was kind of fixed solely in the centre because Obra Dinn was running in the background. So technical issues aside, because I can't slate that against the game itself, that's just an optimization thing. But when I first played it, I had no idea what to expect. And when I came into the game, I was like, okay, this is a bit weird, quite an interesting story, quite an interesting art style, but when I came on the ship I was like, well, this is a waste of time because there's nobody here. And of course you go in and the whole premise of the game is you are is it an insurance investigator?
Yeah.
And you use a magical pocket watch, not like Bernard's watch, which I have to admit would be quite funny if the two got mixed up.
Poor Bernard, Jesus.
Can you imagine that? It's like, okay, time to stop time and get those sweeties. And then he sees this rabbit getting tanned by a car or something.
Wow, that would have made for a very different TV show.
But yeah, sorry, my fan fiction aside there. Yeah, so you've got this magical pocket watch that kind of shows you a snippet of time before someone dies, or rather, kind of the final moments of how they died. And there's some really intense moments, mind you. At the very beginning, they show you someone getting shot in the face. They show you someone getting cut down and everything, and you think, oh good lord, this is going to be quite intense. Slight spoilers, going into the story, but the turning point where I had a very much a oh shit moment was when I went into the past of one of these skeletons and I thought, okay, what shot him? Was it someone who stabbed him in the back? And then 2 seconds later I was met with a giant tentacle kraken thing, and I was like, sweet Jesus. This game is not what I expected at all, and it felt so satisfying. See, when you figured out who the person was, how did they die, that kind of thing. So basically you have to do a Columbo and match the names on the roster against the bodies, as it were, and also specify who they were, what their rank was, how they died. One of the things that was quite interesting though when I was researching this episode, and I think I told you before we started recording, but apparently Lucas Pope had a real and very, very severe issue with this game when it came to localization, and it's something I never really thought of, but in terms of language, which I have to admit, for someone who's into language learning, I don't bring it up nearly as much as I probably should. So in the game, you have to say Captain William dies by getting shot or something like that. But some of the terminology that it was using for the English version doesn't necessarily translate well in other languages. For example, knifed doesn't translate really with some other languages and things like that. So you had to kind of find a way to try and adapt that for other localizations. Because, there's also slang, there's the time period to take into consideration as well. So you can just say they got shanked and dabbed on. That wouldn't have made sense in 1807. Yeah, it was quite interesting to see that was one of the major stumbling blocks, but it just shows again Lucas Pope's dedication to this game. But yeah, going into it, I have to admit there were some frustrating moments, where it was you were pretty much just guessing who certain people were, and I did find myself quite frustrated that I didn't know. Other people, it was kind of obvious, and I did feel quite clever when I would work it out. So for example, there's a particular scene where there's an ongoing mutiny and someone yells for a medic, and when you're walking through the scene, you can see a guy with the medical bag running, and then you realise, oh, that must be the medic, and then you scan him and everything and you put him into the book. And I don't know, I felt really smart thinking, oh, I've figured one out, yay. But some of the other ones aren't as obvious, and I know that's the point of the game, but sometimes I was maybe throw me a bone or two. Maybe that's insensitive to the crew of the Obra Dinn, but yeah. What was your experience though?
So when I first heard about this game, I was like, this sounds right up my street. And I played it, and I'm happy to say it completely was. I love this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I enjoy kind of deductive puzzle solving games, and I think this is one of the best that I've played. So, but I can, again, that's very much it very much works with my personality. Again, but I can completely see if it's how it wouldn't maybe work for everybody. It's that kind of thing, it's difficult to imagine yourself not having the personality that you have and it working, but it really, really chimed for me, and I really loved it. And so the main gameplay, you've basically describe the main gameplay loop anyway. You need to discover the, as you say, the names and fates of the 60 people who were on board the Obra Dinn as it set off. And you have that magical pocket watch, the memento mortem, as you say, which allows you to kind of experience the final moment of a person's life. You also have a logbook, a crew roster, and like a ship blueprint as well. And you need to kind of use those three documents plus kind of dialogue and contextual clues to work out, everyone's identity and their fate. Because sometimes people are dying. Like, you don't always find bodies of people. Sometimes you actually have to look in other memories. You have to look in people's memories to find out other people die. And basically how it works is the game will inform you when you've correctly deduced three persons' identities and fates. So you have to get a collection of three. It won't tell you if you just do like one at a time. It'll tell you when you've got three right, as a way to kind of stop you from, like, kind of artificially stop you from just sort of brute forcing it in a way. So how accessible did you find this game at all? Did you find it like more of a struggle to get into this one than with Papers, Please, or was it slightly easier? Or
I would say it's probably harder to get into this game because, I mean, in theory, Papers, Please is an investigatory game, if you know what I mean. Like, you're investigating the facts right before you, you're kind of figuring out, is this person telling the truth? Is their story matching up with the documents they've given me and everything? For this one, you do get a kind of wider world, even if it's like on a boat, and I do think that's something that Pope does really well, these kind of small environments to explore. Sometimes it would work, but sometimes I would feel as if, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I just like misunderstood, but there's some moments where it's like, once you've explored a scene, your hands start shaking and you have to press the pocket watch to guide you to like the next body or something. Sometimes that pops up, sometimes it doesn't. Is that like a random thing? Like, you've explored that and then it will trigger that once you've explored that memory?
I think it does it if somebody else happens to be dying at the same time in the memory. So for instance, like you might reach a body and there's like let's take the kind of Kraken. So the Kraken scene, you arrive into that by investigating the body of the captain's wife. And then I think, so she dies in that scene, but there's also other people who are getting killed at nearly the same time. So I think the game then leads you to that body, or like where that person was dying as a way, because there are bodies on the ship, but there's not always, like, some people die and fall overboard, or die in other. I won't say too much because I do think this is a game, if you're interested in it, it's really worth like finding the story out for yourself. But some people die in other locations, so there's not always a body to find. The memento mortem guides you to that. It's sort of how that works. So it doesn't always work for every memory, because not some memories only one person's dying.
Ah, right, okay. No, that makes sense then.
It's interesting because Lucas Pope himself thinks Papers, Please is a more accessible game. He kind of talked as well, because Papers, Please is only used in the mouse. It's a lot easier for a lot of people to kind of grip around. Well, this one you are having to move around a 3D space. But it's interesting that he did kind of talk, he doesn't think it's as accessible. So it's interesting that it fits with what you're kind of saying in a way.
I can totally see what he means though, because, and I was joking with you earlier about this, where I actually found Papers, Please on the Apple App Store, and I was like, Jesus, I did not know you could have dystopia in your iPad. So there you go. But like, that's the kind of game Papers, Please is. You can have it on your tablet, you can have it on your computer, you can have it on, I don't know, did it come out for Xbox? And
it's not on any console as far as I know.
No, is it not? No, that's what I thought.
It might have been on the Vita, I have a feeling, maybe. But then again, I feel like it kind of works on a hand. It's still that kind of handheld format, as you say.
Yeah, it's like that kind of accessibility, isn't it? What I'm laughing at, sorry, is I just had like a brainwave here. Can you imagine if it was on the DS or something like that?
Oh wow, just like swiping away on your 3DS.
Little Timmy at Christmas just like, denied. Phew. Boy, little Timmy's sure enjoying that game we got him for Christmas. Glory to Arstotzka!
Little Timmy grows up to join US border control.
Nintendo, take notes. The game's called Papers, Please, and if you put it on sale on the Switch, give us a cut, please. Anyway, my role-playing as a corrupt guard aside, yeah, I totally see what he means. I do feel as if there is more of a steep learning curve for this game. Like, don't get me wrong, when I say learning curve, I don't mean in the sense that it's a difficult game to pick up, because, the game itself is very standard. You play as a insurance investigator, you go around the ship, you say, oh boy, he died because of X reason or Y reason, and then that's it. That's the whole point of the game. But at the same time, there are a lot of moments that do, as you said, they feel quite ambiguous, and because the whole game's in like kind of like a shaded black and white environment, sometimes it's quite hard to make out what's going on. For example, the guy who gets blown up as he's like fighting the Kraken. I have to admit, I did not really get that initially until like I looked at the logs and what people were saying and things. I was like, oh, okay, that's happened. And I think there is leeway. I could be wrong in that, but I think there is actually leeway for when you say, how did this person die? And as long as it's in parameters, then it says you're technically right.
Yeah, like you're right. There are some features that kind of can help you out. Like that's one of them. Also, as well, most of the crew's faces will be blurred until like you have enough information. So like even if you've not maybe figured out at the minute, the game will kind of let you know by like unblurring their face that you have enough information there to work it out. So you can maybe go back and like look at different things. Also, the game gives you a difficulty rating as well for each person. So that kind of lets you know you're like, all right, okay, maybe I just need to like, except I'm not going to find out who this person is right now because I just don't have enough. And then you can find out, but oh, look, I seem to be, this is a low difficulty rating. The face is unblurred. Again, I feel this is a very personal, very subjective thing, and it kind of comes down to that. There's a lot of things you need to use here. So you need to use those kind of documents you get, but you also need to like look for a lot of clues. And there's like very small details that can help you. Things like accents, I started to find very useful for like trying to identify people, because you get told in the crew roster what everybody's nationality is. So that can help. Tattoos as well sometimes can be helped. There's other kind of visual clues. One thing that I just found out today in researching this, there's apparently numbers on the hammocks in the ship that can be used to help. I'd never noticed that before, but if you can find those, that can really help you as well. And as well, alongside this, there are points you're going to have to use like you're going to have to make guesses, and it's just trying to kind of rationally work things out. Like sometimes for instance, there's a collection of Russian sailors, and there maybe is enough clues. I think you can work out some of them. There's enough clues, but I think for some of the others, especially, I just kind of did it by a process of elimination type thing, where I would just kind of change names and stuff. So you can do that as well. My biggest frustration with this game is nothing to do with the game itself. It's to do with how I played it first time round. I kind of started to brute force a few things, and I'm very annoyed at myself now because I realized I was like, oh my god, I was doing things like, I was like, oh my god, that was a clue that I could have worked that out if I'd spent more time. But again, it kind of comes down to that, and I can see that being frustrating for some people because, you know, it's the nature of it. It's not as handholdy in a kind of way as other sort of like detective games. Do you have like, just a matter of interest, do you have like much interest in kind of detective games, or like a lot of prior experience playing them? Or
it depends on the game, to be honest. I do like it in some games where they'll have, let's say, for example, you know, like if it's a shooter game, if it's an open world game, if it's something like that, I do appreciate it sometimes when they kind of mix it up and they do have a kind of detective side. Well, there's none I can think of off the top of my head just now, but it's that way that it's a way to kind of explore the world and allow you to get that satisfaction of being able to figure out, you know, the issue. It's like when you get to that realization, you think, oh, that's who did X and Y. You know, a bit like, and again, I know I bring this up every time, but like Deadly Premonition, because how many nights did we spend on that game just thinking, I think that's the killer. No, that's the killer.
Oh, that was fun. That was good fun.
Yeah, a game like Deadly Premonition, let's go with Deadly Premonition. Like, I loved that game for many different reasons, but the main reason was, of course, being the fact that you could take the role of this eccentric FBI agent who went out there, ate Sinner sandwiches, and doesn't afraid of anything. And yes, I know, outdated meme, but yeah, it was just like so satisfying when you figured out certain things, and I do like that kind of thing. But the only issue is, with the case of Obra Dinn, it is like a very gripping mystery. But if it's too overly complicated, or there's like moments in like a mystery that just don't make sense, then it kind of starts to push me away, because I think, well, if I wasn't able to guess this based off the evidence, then what's the point of the game or movie or whatever media? But with Obra Dinn, as I said, for the most part, it does give you logical conclusions, like, oh, this guy got shot, this guy got crushed, this guy was a stowaway, etc. But there are a handful, I will admit, where you just get really frustrated. And I was kind of laughing in the background because I thought, when you said about some of the people whose faces were blurred and you don't know who they were and everything, and you have to kind of go back to investigate them, I felt that exact frustration when I played this game, because I was like, really, we're going to have to go back and, you know, find out who Bloody McGee is over here? And, you know, that's part of the game, though. That's part of exploring this mystery. What happened to the Obra Dinn? Why did it return, and so forth? So I definitely think it is an interesting concept. It's a nice change of pace, because usually I'm used to games that they'll say go from point A to point B and have more of a linear story and don't get you to think as much. And don't get me wrong, those are fine every so often, but when you get other games that ask you to think about the story, I mean, another example, of course, is the one you and I actually played recently, To the Moon, which isn't inherently an investigative game, but at the same time you are going through the memories of like a dying man. You're figuring out, in that game in particular, why he wants to go to the moon by exploring his memories as well. The only difference is you don't see a big sea monster in that, spoilers. But for Obra Dinn, you're doing a similar thing where you are going through the memories of these sailors. You're trying to find out who's who, what happened. So yeah, no, I do like a bit of mystery every so often. But what about yourself? Are you the same, or?
I really enjoy detective games. I've played a lot of the older kind of CSI. I've never watched CSI, but I've played a lot of the older CSI games. I've played some of the Sherlock Holmes games, things like LA Noire, kind of Murdered Soul Suspect. I've played quite a few different kind of detective games, and I really enjoy Her Story as well as another one. I really enjoy ones where you have to figure out a mystery and you have to use evidence and try and work things out. Obra Dinn for me is the best of those kind of deductive games, and there's a really I'd recommend, if people are interested in this, there's a really good video on YouTube from a channel called Game Maker's Toolkit, which is a fantastic series if you're interested in game design and things like that. Really good series. But that channel has a really interesting video talking about Obra Dinn and sort of the way it works. And what Obra Dinn does so well compared to other detective games is that a lot of other detective games try to mirror as closely as they can the actual process of like what detectives do. The issue is games aren't at artificial intelligence isn't at a stage where we can do that. We can't ask, you can't ask a character like a witness an infinite list of questions. So the game kind of has to artificially push you in a direction. So the game kind of can almost lead you by the hand in a way, as much as it tries not to. Obra Dinn doesn't do that, and by kind of taking this sort of otherworldly approach to it, which it doesn't mirror reality at all, it actually allows you to take complete charge of the investigation, and it's all like you're the one driving it and making conclusions and deciding what you're going to use and everything. And that's what I love it. And I think it's just like the way it does the mission. Again, it's such a personal thing. I think this game maybe is such a subjective whether you like it or not. It really chimed for me. It really worked because of my personality, but I can totally see it just not working and not clicking for other people. One kind of last thing I would say just before we move on as well, like one thing I love is it reminds me so much of being a historian. Now, I'm not a historian myself. I do have as you may know, I do have an intense interest in history, and I have done historical research before, and this game kind of reminds me of it, because when you're kind of conducting historical research, a lot of the time the pieces are all there. You just need to kind of put them together. So you need to like review different documents and everything, and that's what this game is as well. The evidence is all there. The evidence is all there for you to work out. You just need to uncover it, put it together, see what fits, and then sometimes you might be going to have to make a kind of logical jump to get an answer. Again, it just reminds me so much of that and what I loved about doing historical research, that again it just really chimed for me. So I do love this game. I would recommend it, but maybe with some hesitation, because again it might just not be your thing, and that's, if it's not your thing, that's fair enough. No blame to be apportioned there. That's just the way it is. But like kind of we won't kind of discuss it, because I do think the story is one thing that I think is best not being too discussed. If you are interested in this game, I think it's really fun to uncover, but it's just kind of briefly kind of going over the story and everything. One thing that I really loved about the story was the kind of combination of the mundane with the supernatural. So we've talked about this, like at one point a giant kraken appears and is like ripping people apart and like throwing them overboard and everything. But other points you're finding people who basically die of tuberculosis, other people who die when cargo falls on them. And I really like the kind of, it's not just one thing or the other. What did you like find about the story? Were there things that you really liked about the story? Were there other bits that you didn't like as much?
It was interesting, as you said, to see those comparisons and contrasts, if that makes sense. As you said, there was the people who died of tuberculosis, there was people who died from mutinies, of course, which isn't very ideal when you're on a ship. But the worst one, of course, being the Kraken creature, which I'm not going to lie, that completely threw me off guard. I was kind of like, wait, what is going on all of a sudden? Because I went into this game having no knowledge whatsoever of this game. And then when that turned up, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be one of those games now. I did like it though. I did feel as if it lit it up quite well. Where you'd have like one moment where the crew were fighting like these horrible sea creatures, and then on the other half you would have this downtime, if that makes sense, where they're talking with one another, they're joking. Like there's one particular moment where they're down below and they're looking after like the livestock animals, and one of the other crewmen teases the other one saying, I can't remember if he's a midshipman, but he says something like, oh, what's the matter? You never grew up on a farm. And I thought that was a nice touch. It wasn't just complete exposition throughout the entire way. It wasn't like, oh, never grew up on a farm, Charlie. No, but my great grandmother used to warn me. She was an Aztec priestess. And it's like, okay, yeah, no. There's no Aztec priestesses in this, by the way. I'm just saying, like, very facetiously. It wasn't 120% exposition. There were some real human moments. And as I said, it was satisfying when you got to explore, like, one memory, and then you just said, unknown, death by, I don't know, cannonball to the face. But then you would see that same person in another memory, and then you would be able to link the two together to say, oh, that person called them Charlie and everything. Therefore, they must be Charlie. And you link it up and it corrects you if you're right, and you think, oh, that's fantastic. So there is a reward in that kind of sense of satisfaction, but in terms of the story, I do think it's well done, but am I right in saying it is quite fragmented? So I can agree that like it's not maybe going to be for everyone.
Yeah, you're not going to experience the story in chronological order. You're going to stumble across bodies that are out of sequence. Like the very first body you're going to come across, it takes place right at the end of the story. Like, and it's, if you go into like your logbook, it kind of it's divided into 10 chapters, I think, if memory serves rightly, that kind of detail different bits of the voyage. So basically, you start right at the end. When there's very few people left on the ship, and you kind of see what happened to the last of them, and then you'll jump around the different points from there. So it is out of sequence. Again, you're right. Like this might some people might not like that nature, but I quite enjoyed it. I quite liked getting different bits and then in my head putting them together and then reviewing through the book and and then seeing the story build up. But I can get if it's not for you. Did you kind of have a feeling on the kind of fragmentary, out of sequence like timeline?
Personally, I think it worked. I can see why it would be frustrating to people, because I do know of like people who, even when they're watching a film and then as soon as a flashback pops up, they're completely lost and they're like, who is this character? What are they doing here? Why are they doing XYZ? That kind of thing. You think, oh god, here we go. But I do think that it does work in the context of the story, because the fact is, you're not, especially like for the character you play, you're not playing as a person who, is going to get the facts from point A to point Z. On the one hand, as you said, this game gives you total autonomy to explore the ship, to take it at your own pace, to identify these people, how they died, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, it is restricting you in this fragmented way. But I mean, it's like any mystery in real life. If a detective goes to a crime scene, they're not gonna get all the facts right away, unless someone's left like a journal of like the whole process at the scene, which is very rare. But they're just going to have to work backwards. As you said, you start at the very end of the game and then work your way back Benjamin Button style. It's interesting to see that. It is interesting to see a game that's kind of brave enough to implement something like that, because I'm sure it's been done before. In fact, no, I tell a lie, it has been done before. The only infamous example I remember of it being done poorly is David Cage's Beyond Two Souls. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm sorry I had to bring this shame and disgust into this episode.
You couldn't keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't go through the episode and keep you happy with the fact that we're only going to discuss Obra Dinn, so I apologise.
Well, to me, the Shadow the Hedgehog story came in a very fragmented. I don't know if it was, but it felt very out of sequence and fragmented. Like, granted, I didn't get all 500 endings. There's like 7, isn't there? I'm being facetious now, but
oh no, there's 10.
Oh, there's 10. No, fair enough. There's 10. There's half of Papers, Please's ending. Again, it felt, but I don't think that was. I think that was just because I only had done the experience like a portion of the game. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Although it is technically a linear story, I'm just going to emphasise and leave that word on the table, technically. Just leave it there. Yeah, that was a game. Thank you for bringing that up as well, Adam.
You're welcome. Again, like I feel if we're going to summarize this game, I feel like maybe more than Papers, Please. This is a very subjective experience. I would recommend it, but again, I don't know. Perhaps it's just it just won't jive with you, and I said that's fine. That if it doesn't, I can understand. Maybe you'll fall in love with it like I did. So again, who knows? Just go try it out. What have you got to lose? If you don't like it, you can always just put it down.
I just want to emphasise that point because although I haven't given as positive a reception to this game, I don't mean to be negative because I'm not. I do think this is a very interesting game and it's got some really fascinating mechanics to it. Again, I think some bits are a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world, is what I'm saying. I do believe that this is a game that if you're looking for something different, if you're really into the detective genre of like this kind of mystery game, definitely go play this game. This is the beauty of indie games. It's the fact that you can get these kind of curated experiences where you can roleplay as a passport inspector or you can roleplay as a insurance investigator, both of which on paper it just sounds ridiculous. It's like what you're playing a very boring 9 to 5 kind of job, but Lucas Pope has done it in such a way that you are invested. You want to know more about the Obra Dinn, and again with Papers, Please, you want to know more about Papers, Please. You want to know about Arstotzka. You want to know about what happened, or rather what is even going on in these worlds. I would recommend it as well. I don't think, again, it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's one that I think a lot of people might try and kind of think, I don't know, because it is drastically different. Like if you're going from Papers, Please all the way to Obra Dinn, both of them are like night and day. They're completely different games. And I do agree with what Pope was saying earlier that Papers, Please is maybe a bit more accessible. I will agree with that. But at the end of the day, Obra Dinn is just such a unique experience. And I would actually say that you'd be hard pressed to find a game like Obra Dinn. You will get detective games and things like that and very similar concepts, but to find a game like Obra Dinn is probably going to be very difficult. But I've got a question for you, Adam, though, before we move on. Would you say this is in like your top 10 favourite games of all time?
Definitely. It might not quite crack the top 5, but it's definitely in my top 10. I've only played this game twice. I recently kind of replayed it earlier this year, and I was a bit worried because Papers, Please at least has different, it's got 20 different endings. You can do kind of, as much as you'll do the same things and meet a lot of the same people, you can like have a different experience playing it. You're not going to have like people's fates don't change in Obra Dinn, like, their names don't change. So it was one of those things I was like, oh God, is this going to be even worse because it's this game I don't think I'll ever fully be able to enjoy it again as I did that first time. But I left a couple of years in between playing it again. I replayed it recently. Honestly, I think I might have loved it more the second time round. There were some people who I just remember. I couldn't expunge their memory from my mind. So I was like, right, I remember who that person is. But there was a lot of characters because there's 60 people. So there was a lot of people I'd actually forgotten. So I was like, right, okay, let's, I can go back to like square one and try and work out who these people are. And then it was just I really got to appreciate all these different the visual clues and the auditory clues. I remember one thing when I just heard somebody say a word and I was like, oh, that sounds like a Scottish accent. So I ran to the crew roster and I'm looking through it. I'm like, wait a minute, here's a Scottish person. This looks like I think it was a sailor. It's like, this looks like a kind of ordinary sailor. So I was like, let's try this. And then I find out it's right. And it's funny. I found this one of the most fun experiences to play. And again, like, I don't know, some people probably share that opinion with me, but I can see a lot of other people being like, what, you weirdo? Like, how is this fun? It made me feel so smart and so clever. And I got such enjoyment from working out who people were. If you get all the fates right at the end, like, you can find out there's like a missing chunk of the story that you won't get to unless you work everybody out correctly. It's important to say this game, you don't have to work it. The game can still end. You don't have to find out all the fates correctly. The game still kind of gets to a point where you can end it. You just won't find out the full story. But like, I really wanted to see exactly what happened on this and get kind of the big story beats. And I really love it for that. So it's one of my favorite games of all time. And you know what? Like, I really want to go play it again, but I know I'm like, right, I need to at least leave some time in between because it's eventually going to be a point where I'm pretty sure all these people's names will be burned into my memory. So I have a limited number of playthroughs of this game, so I need to try and eke them out over the rest of my life. But I love this game. I really do.
It is one of those games I know you wholeheartedly recommended to me, a bit like Edith Finch, and you were like, oh, you should play this game. It's absolutely fantastic. The narrative's amazing, but it has honestly been such a pleasure listening to how much you got from this game and how much you enjoyed it. But I do agree with you. I think that's one of the main issues of this game, that there isn't as much replayability for it, because the roster list is set to that group of 60, and as soon as you get like every single person and you've guessed their fates and everything, that's it. You know, you can't really go back. Yeah, you just can't go back without remembering what happened to the Obra Dinn. And it is like certain indie games where you do go through it and you kind of think, oh, I wish I could go back and play it for the first time again. There's certain games I wish I could do that, but Obra Dinn does seem like one of those very special experiences that you go through and you think, wow, this is a absolutely fantastic game. So no, thank you for like genuinely sharing that enjoyment in the episode.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and apologies for everybody listening for my my mad soliloquy there. It's just one of these games that chimed so much for me. I'm sure, like I know Satsunami, you've had games like that have done that for you, and I'm sure people listening can think of games, films, books, whatever, whatever thing, a piece of music has just absolutely clicked for you, and it was just one of these things. But again, thank you for trying it, and and I'm sorry it didn't quite have the same result for you, but that's it. That's what can you do? That's life. Everybody has different reactions to things, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
The one thing I would say, just to kind of point out, is, and I think it's actually something that Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation actually pointed out, where he said, see, when you play this game, you should do it in like short bursts.
Good point.
Is that something you did when you first played this?
No. I'll be honest. I played this in I played it in I think maybe 2 days, maybe 2 or 3 days at the most. Like, he makes a good point. Maybe it's better to eke it out, but I don't know. I just found myself so gripped by it that I physically couldn't. I have no patience. No patience. So I was just like, I want to play more of this and I want to experience more. But I think it's a valid point. If you can do it, if you're really enjoying it and you can have like that level of self-control, then it probably is a better way to approach it. You'll get more out of it. The experience will last longer. But as I say, I have no I'm weak. I'm a weak, spineless man who's for temptation, so that was me.
I think for me personally, because I went through it, just in the kind of one sitting, it's a bit similar to how I felt with Papers, Please. Like, although I enjoyed that game as well, both of these games are very exhausting. See, when you play them hour after hour and things like that, like, I think I spent a good couple of hours on my first playthrough for Papers, Please, and I just got so exhausted by it. Again, it was a similar thing to you. I just could not stop. I just kept going and going, and I was just making more mistakes as I went on, and I thought, right, maybe it's time to stop this game soon because I'm getting tired. And it was the same with Obra Dinn. Like, I was still going through it, and I kind of thought, maybe I should. Like, I think I did take a break at one point, and again, I'm not saying like Obra Dinn is a bad game. It's absolutely not. It's a fantastic experience. I would wholeheartedly recommend it as well, but I think that kind of contributed.
The frustration building and everything.
Yeah, and like the insurance inspector just coming out and be like, what happened to the ship in the end? They all burned in a fire. Right, let's go. Just another day for the Arstotzka insurance investigator. I was like, yeah, let's just go back to Arstotzka and never speak of this again. Jokes aside, I actually did enjoy my experience with this game, but I can understand why people wouldn't enjoy it, and I would recommend that if you are going into this game and you do find yourself getting frustrated or tired, please do take a break. Take a break to step back, because literally you do have all the time in the world in this game. You can step back, say, okay, not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to just sit back, have a look, and yeah, just get my bearings. And I think that is important to enjoying this game. It's like a fine wine.
You don't need to worry about feeding your family in this game, so as well, it takes that pressure off at the very least.
Well, I hope not. I hope there wasn't a mini game we missed.
I generally hope not to. I didn't want to leave the Obra Dinn. I was like, I won't go back.
Can you imagine the modding scene for this? It's like Obra Dinn, but with the Papers, Please family system.
Oh my god. Jeez. Don't give them ideas. So as we approach, is there anything else you want to say about Return of the Obra Dinn before we kind of wrap up?
I would just say go try it. It's a unique experience, and honestly, I don't think you'll regret it. Genuinely, I do not think you'll regret playing this game. It does have a lot of praise, and again, if this isn't your cup of tea, don't worry about it, because it is like so drastically different from a lot of other games, but I still think it does great. It seems very simplistic at times, you know, with just the one button click, and then basically, as you said before, Adam, it's a bit similar to Papers, Please, where you're using the keyboard to move, granted, but it is very much like a point and click adventure, a bit like, you know, the point and click adventures of old. And I think that's kind of what the appeal is to this game. It's the fact that it goes back to that kind of simplistic time, but it translates it into the modern era of gaming, and it just shows you that these games, or rather these type of games, have a place in the modern landscape of gaming.
Totally agree. It's on most systems now. I think I don't think there's many things it's not on. Maybe it's not onto mobile devices, might be the only thing Obra Dinn's not on, but it's on most other systems. So, you know, there's plenty of chances to check it out. So, as I said, like, just to concur with what Satsunami said there, give it a try. If it's not your thing, then so be it. You know, you put it down, don't have to worry about it, but maybe it will be your thing. And there's not many other experiences you're going to find, not many other games you're going to find like Obra Dinn. So, yeah, what have you got to lose? As we conclude now, I think I know your answer to this one, but I'll ask the question anyway. So, do you prefer one game over the other here? Is there one that really stood out to you?
Nah, both of them were rubbish.
0 out of 10.
Didn't expect that, did you?
I didn't, that's true.
Now give me my passport back.
Detain. Enjoy your full body scan now.
Oh, God. Oh boy, I hope he put the censorship bar up, because this is going to be a bad time. Yeah, it's probably expected, but I think I probably preferred Papers, Please, purely just for the fact it was more accessible, and I think as well, this is going to sound really weird, but I feel as if after playing games like To the Moon and Finding Paradise, you know, that kind of series of games, and of course Edith Finch as well, I feel as if I'm becoming an emotional gamer. I've always wanted games with a very strong narrative core, and sometimes games don't deliver on that, like for example Halo, Call of Duty. I mean, sometimes games like Red Dead Redemption come along and that has a similar vein, but not to the extent that I felt when I played games like To the Moon, Edith Finch and so on. With Papers, Please, I felt as if I was more attached to the story, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Papers, Please is a better game than Obra Dinn. I feel as if both have their merits, and if you'll excuse me, I'll try and shift on this fence that I'm sitting on. At the same time, I didn't feel as emotionally invested in Obra Dinn. I did want to know what happened, don't get me wrong, my curiosity was piqued. I was like, what happened here? Why is there a giant crack in here? Why are these people causing a mutiny and so forth? I didn't get why things were happening. I was like, oh, I want to learn more. But in terms of like the emotional core, definitely Papers, Please. For me anyway, it hit me stronger than Obra Dinn. And again, that's not to say that Obra Dinn's a bad game, it's not, but that's the reason why I would say that I preferred Papers, Please. It wasn't because of the gameplay, it wasn't because of anything like that, it was just more emotionally hitting to me. Maybe it's just because you and I are historian buffs, where, you know, we like these kind of, or rather, where we recognise these kind of settings, and it's very much like a Cold War era, propaganda driven story and setting and things, so I was kind of relating more to that, because although Obra Dinn is a historical game, I've not got much knowledge when it comes to like naval and nautical things like that. I'm not as invested in that compared to this kind of period, but yeah, no, that would be mine, but I'm assuming you would be the opposite.
Make some room on that fence, because I'm coming up to join you with a with a very fence-sitting answer.
Oh, wait. Where's your passport?
Hey, no, I'm the passport. I'm the border control officer here. You're not gonna play mind games with me.
No, not in this fence.
You're getting an extra year in the gulag for that. I claimed this fence for the glorious nation of Arstotzka.
Have you got a flag?
I do. You know, I carry my Arstotzka flag with me. My son made it before he died from lack of food.
God damn it. God damn those crafty Arstotzkans. Anyway, sorry.
No, as I said, Obra Dinn is one of my favourite games of all time, but I do think Papers, Please, I would rate it as one of the best games I've ever played. again, it's sort of that way. Like I differentiate best from like favorite, because sometimes there's things that I'm like I love that, but I can objectively say it's not. I don't think it's the best thing ever made. But I really do think Papers, Please is one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. Just because I think it shows a lot of what gaming can do as a medium and the real strengths of video games compared to other entertainment mediums. I just think it's exceptional, and I think it really like engages you. And I completely agree. Like, there's not really emotion to Obra Dinn. The kind of emotion I got was like elation when I figured things out, but you're completely right in that Papers, Please is a far more emotionally engaging story. That's like a real strength of it. So again, I would differentiate that. Obra Dinn, I probably prefer Obra Dinn as like a favorite game. It's something I'd much rather play, and I had a lot more fun playing. But if I'm looking at like gaming in like a higher kind of artistic terms, I think Papers, Please is the better game out of the two. So yeah, we'll both sit up on this. I feel like we always end up sitting on the fence, but it's there for a reason. Sitting on is what I presume that reason is. As a final kind of thing, like, how interested are you now in kind of any future games that Lucas Pope does? Would you be on the lookout for them now, or is it something that you feel like you would keep a lookout for anything else he does in the future?
I would certainly be interested, because although I know it's not going to be like Papers, Please 2 or Obra Dinn 2, I don't even know how Obra Dinn 2 would work. It's back, but with zombies. You'd be like, Sean of the Obra Dinn.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, like, I don't think he's the kind of person to do sequel games, a bit like David Cage, but it would be an insult to compare Lucas Pope to David Cage as a video game creator. I would be interested, 100%. I would be interested to see what he comes up with next, as opposed to like expecting more of the same, if that makes sense. I don't want Papers, Please 2. Maybe if it was like remastered or refined or something, that would be different, but nah, I wouldn't want Papers, Please 2.
I don't think he doesn't seem to have any interest in making sequels, and that's kind of part of the reason he left Naughty Dog. Was he said like he had no interest in working on Uncharted 3, which he knew was going to be the next thing, so he kind of like had his fill of that. So I don't think he will. I meant to say as well, sorry, I forgot to mention previously, but actually Lucas Pope's favorite game is Papers, Please, so you're very much in line with him. He prefers it to Obra Dinn, but like he's currently working. I think his next thing is he's working on a game called Midnight to Mars for that. Did you know that system called the Playdate? What's it called again? I don't know if you've heard about it or not. It's like it's a handheld device. It's kind of built around this kind of crank operated thing. Like, I can't really describe it. I don't know too much about it, but that's what he's most recently been working on. And I don't think the Playdate, Playmate, whatever it's called again, has been released yet. So we'll have to see like what happens there. But I think he's looking at making a lot smaller experiences, because Obra Dinn ballooned into this like massive 4-year project that kind of like really burned him out. I think he's looking at much smaller, making much smaller games in the future. So I'm certainly very interested to see what he does next. I will keep a lookout for his name. But then even if he doesn't make anything else, like, I think to have Papers, Please and Return of the Obra Dinn on your list of credits, I think is more than enough. You can rest very happy with having done that in your game developing career. But I'm pleased to hear, I'm pleased to hear that you've enjoyed what he's had to offer, and let's see what the future holds for him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, with that then, well, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you so much, Satsunami, for playing both these games, for dedicating time to them. I know they're very different to a lot of other things out there, but thank you so much for just like diving into them and trying them out, and then just relating your experiences here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Honestly, to borrow a phrase from you, it was an absolute pleasure playing these games. They were, I wouldn't say they were, as you said, they weren't fun games to play at times because of like how stressful they could be, but not in a bad way. I think that's a sign of a good game, that it does make you feel things, because it's one thing going through like a walking sim where you just press forward and then you get to the end and you're like, all right, okay, what do I do next now? But with Papers, Please and Obra Dinn, it was nice to kind of expand my own kind of views on gaming and things. So no, thank you for introducing me to them and actually forcing me to play it from my backlog. So yeah, thank you.
No worries. I'll give you your passport back. You'll be able to enter the glorious nation now. Now that you've shown your loyalty to to our glorious leader, Lucas Pope. All hail.
Yep, glory to Lucas Pope and Arstotzka.
Well, thank you everybody so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode. But until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated. And glory to Arstotzka.